So, hello NDC London. Thank you all for coming to my little talk about hacking and cracking and all that good stuff. This is how hacking works, the web edition. I also have another edition of this talk where we go into more diverse topics of hacking with binary exploitations, protocol overflows and stuff like that. But this is only web. And the web is really cool when it comes to hacking as well. But before we get into all of those details, you have to get to know me a little bit. So I have this Who Am I slide. So my name is Espen Sande-Larsen. I've had many different roles in the tech industry up through my career. I've basically done it all. I'm currently working in DNB Bank. I'm also a professional musician. I release music. I have 3 kids, and I enjoy all types of geeky, creative, tinkering stuff on my spare time and in my professional time. I also really enjoy beer and doing mischievous stuff. As I said, I work for DNB Bank in something called New Tech Lab. I'm currently working on jailbreaking AIs to see if I can get them to do naughty things, which is really fun. I actually get paid for doing that, which is cool. And since I work in a bank, we have to have this obligatory disclaimer where it says, yada, yada, yada. Everything I'm about to say is me saying, not DNB saying. And you might ask yourself, there was something missing from this slide that usually goes up on there, and that is, where is my academic accolades? Where are my PhDs or master degrees and stuff like that? And the reason it's not there is because I don't have any, because I quit school when I was 16, or I was voted out of school when I was 16 by the teachers. And then I figured out I could make money by writing software, and I thought that's brilliant, that must be a scam. So I started doing that, and I've been doing that ever since. And you may ask yourself, why could a 16-year-old kid take up programming as a career at that age? And that started with this thing. Any of you know this marvelous machine? Have you used one? Awesome. That is the excellent Commodore 64. It's based on the 6502 processor. It's 8-bit with a 16-bit address bus. And we got that when I was 6 years old because my big brother traded some drugs for that computer and brought that home. And he was like ecstatic, look at what I got, this thing. And we plugged it into the TV, we got a blue screen that said ready, and we didn't understand a thing. And I would spend the next years of my life trying to figure out how that thing worked. Because when you buy a black market computer, you don't get the best support agreement, so we were basically on our own. And that machine taught me basically all I know about programming and systems and how computers actually work. And that is beneficial when you do security stuff. So before we dive into hacking stuff, let's define what it actually is. Because it used to mean something different. But why take my word for it? Let's check out how Hollywood views hacking. So this is an example from a TV show called NCIS. There's a hack in progress. Let's see how it plays out. Can we get some audio? Okay. That will be much better with audio. Do you have audio? It's flat. Okay. There is audio here. Okay, let's change it to headphone. It's there.
No way.
Thank you.
I'm getting hacked.
That's how you know you're getting hacked.
No,
There's a million pop-ups. And you have to defend in real time. And what's better than one defender on a keyboard? But
dump them on the other side of the
you should have
I'm trying. It's moving too fast.
2 defenders on the same keyboard, because that's how keyboards work.
This is not good. We're using our connection to the INFIS database.
And of course, the technical people can't solve this problem, so the non-technical people come in.
It's not possible. This is DoD level 9 encryption. It would
This guy, he is confident, he doesn't know anything of what's going on.
No, Tony, we're getting hacked.
Take it in Abby's computer.
The other guy is casually eating a sandwich.
I can't stop
This is
him.
pretty
Do
nice.
something, McGee.
I've never seen code like
And
this.
of course, the one who saves the day is the non-technical person who does this.
Where'd it go, Abby?
I didn't do anything. I thought you did.
No.
I did. He unplugged the computer because that's all he had to do to stop that hack, because all essential information and stuff that those hackers wanted was on that single terminal in the lab of that government agency. So that's one way. So how about another TV show? This is from CSI New York. These people work with forensics, so they probably know what they are talking about. Listen to this gem.
For weeks, I've been investigating the Cabby killer murders with a certain morbid fascination.
This is in real time.
I'll create a GUI interface using Visual Basic. See if I can track an IP address.
I'll create a GUI interface using Visual Basic to see if I can find an IP address. I don't know how to comment on that. That's just silly. Why would you use Visual Basic? So how about a movie that's called Hackers? So they surely had to do some research, right? Let's see. Look at that keyboard. That's something you have, right?
There's a new virus in the database.
If you ever wanted to know what a virus looks like, send it to
Replicating, eating
this.
up memory. What do I do?
Type cookie, you idiot. I'll head him off at the pass.
We have a zero bug attacking all login and overlay files.
Run antivirus. Give me a systems display.
Yeah, that's your system display. Come on, shoot the hackers with lasers.
And 1 through 6.
Die, dickweeds.
Oh yeah.
A rabbit is in the administration system.
Send a flu shot.
Rabbit, flu shot, someone talk to me.
A rabbit replicates till it overloads a file, then it spreads like cancer.
Cancer?
And of course we have these circular defender keyboards, right? Yeah, that's silly. How about a TV show that's made about a real hacker that actually lived? They had to do something right? This is my favorite nonsensical hacking examples in media. So it's called Scorpion. There's malware on a plane and they have to fix that. The only way to fix it is, of course, jump in your Ferrari and drive after the plane. You get some poor guy from the flight crew to climb down on the landing gear with an Ethernet cable to plug into the laptop. Because that's the only way you can patch that plane is direct connecting it to the laptop while in flight. I don't know why they have to plug it in, because the attackers evidently have remote access to the plane through that virus. So yeah. And of course, when you run out of runway, you just have to stretch. Come on. Oh. Yeah. Oh. I tried to get my boss to authorize purchasing a Ferrari in case I ever needed to patch a plane. Didn't go through. So no, let's talk about what hacking really is. So it used to mean something different back in the days, because what we used to refer to as hacking and hackers back in the 80s and early 90s was usually people who did other stuff. They were usually people who tinkered with software and hardware. They built computers by themselves. What they tried to do was thinking outside the box, trying to make things do things in which they wasn't intended to. One of my favorite examples of this is the Apple computer that Steve Wozniak designed, where he figured out how to make a color display without a color chip in the computer by misaligning the cathode ray tube to misalign them with the phosphorus cells to create colors because it didn't hit correctly. And that created a consistent set of palette of colors you can have on that machine. But what we refer to as hacking today was originally known as phreaking or phone phreaking. The PH stands for phone, and that is because we didn't have the internet as we know it today. Back then, if you wanted to connect to a computer and communicate with it, you had to actually call it up on the phone. And these people, they were like proficient with the phone systems, the phone lines. They could manipulate the terminals, the switchboards, and all that stuff. And they could break into computers remotely using the phone system. But what we are talking about in the context of this talk is just exploiting systems through their vulnerabilities. So this talk can take a couple of different turns. So I'm going to do like an informal audience poll just to gauge what kind of people I'm working with. So how many of you are programmers, coders, who write code for a living? Wow, there's, yeah, developer conference, I get it. How many of you are tech leads, architects, solution principals? You don't work with code, you work with PowerPoints and whiteboards. Yeah, great, a couple of you. How about security engineers, pen testers, or white hat hackers? Okay, that will change. How about something else? You're a Scrum Master or a Project Manager. Ah, okay. Okay, now I know something about you. Let's define some different kinds of hackers, because different kinds of hackers are motivated by different kinds of things. And they express their motivation by wearing certain colored hats. So you can just look into a room and look at all the different hats, and you can figure out what kind of hacker you are dealing with. So we have the black hats. Those are the bad people, the malicious people who do bad stuff. Then we have the opposite, that's the white hat hackers. They do ethical stuff, they pen test, they figure out things in your systems that you hire them to do. Then we have the kind of in-betweener, that's the gray hat. They don't necessarily do things maliciously, but they also don't necessarily have permission to do what they do. But they game on getting rewarded by doing disclosures. Then we have the green hats. They are the new hackers who have just started on their hacker journey, which is what I hope to convert many of you today into. And then we have the red hat hackers, and those are not Linux fan people. They are hackers who hunt other hackers and take down malicious hacker organizations. And then finally we have the blue hat hackers. Those are a certain kind of group that gets called in prior to releases of big software to find vulnerabilities and security flaws before it goes out into the wild. For instance, Microsoft has a long history of hosting blue hat events before they release new versions of Windows and Office and stuff like that. So now that we know the different kinds of hackers, why do hacks actually happen in the first place? Couldn't we just stop having them happen? And the reason is simple, it's because we are developers, we are humans, so we make mistakes. We do stupid stuff sometimes. Not necessarily on purpose, but sometimes we overlook some details, or we use something we didn't know we couldn't use for a certain purpose. And software systems are pretty complex things. It's actually one of the most complex things we humans do. And that's where the devil is, in those little overlooked details. And there's another thing that's new today that wasn't there before, and that is today we like other people's code like it's the best thing ever. We love libraries and packages, and we pull them in without ever thinking anything about it. Just think of how many packages your Node project has, for instance. That should scare everyone. We developers, we tend to like our tools. And if we have a tool, we're proficient with that tool, we kind of tend to use it for everything, rather than changing a tool if it's more suited for the purpose. It's kind of like if you have a hammer, you love your hammer, and you need to mix cement, you still use the hammer to mix the cement. And the reason I know this is because it happened to me. Boy, did I get hacked. And this cinnamon bun Swedish ad will make sense in a bit, because back in the day, I changed my job, and I got offered a position as a CTO in a new startup. And we were going to take over the world of online advertising. We would design this system that would be on all e-newspapers in Europe and North America. And we would have this interconnected set of advertisement spaces where we can put interactive advertisements, where you can play games, win prizes, have scoreboards, in the campaigns themselves. The problem is that when you're a CTO in a startup and you have a big thing you envision that doesn't exist, it means you're also the tech lead, the principal architect, and the lead programmer, and you had to build this thing. And there was another problem, there weren't any clouds yet available. This wasn't a thing. So I had to build up a distributed real-time system by setting up data centers all over Europe and in the US, figuring out how to connect these things together and sync everything up, and we built a distributed cloud platform, basically. And then it came to the client side. And back then there was only one suitable thing for that task. That is something called Flash. How many of you remember Flash? Oh yes. So Flash is this peculiar thing that was made by a company called Macromedia. It was later acquired by Adobe. For those of you who don't know, here is a crash course in Flash. This is your IDE. It has a code window, and it has some documentation of things you can do with the code and what everything does. And it has kind of a setup of what you're using in your project. But There are a couple of things here that isn't usually present in an IDE. Like you have, let's see, does this work? We have drawing tools, and we have a timeline. And that is because Flash wasn't designed to build secure client applications. It was designed to create interactive presentations, cartoons, or funny little games you could use to promote your business or do presentations more fun. So it's kind of like advanced PowerPoint, basically. So we built this client in this thing, and it compiles into a binary format that was run on a plugin in the browser, so it should work. I thought it was fine. What I didn't know, but I since have learned, is that Flash was really easy to reverse engineer. And we had this big campaign in Sweden where we had this fly swatting game that if you killed enough flies, you won a free cinnamon bun. It was why you would associate food and killing flies, I don't know. But at least that was the game. And a Swedish student figured out how to reverse engineer that game. And by doing so, he found a backend call that generated the price token. So what he did then was share this on the student forums across Sweden, and suddenly all students in Sweden started getting a bunch of free cinnamon buns. I got a call early one morning with a furious CEO on the other end of the line telling me that one student had picked up 73 cinnamon buns in one single day. One student, 73 buns. My immediate response is that person really enjoys cinnamon buns, which my CEO didn't take lightly to, but I thought it was kind of funny. So I had to stand in front of the board and say, oh, I'm so sorry, it's my fault, it will never happen again. And then I got tired of being yelled at for after a couple of hours, so I decided to fix it. So I said to my CEO, you are going to Sweden, you're going to bring a case of cinnamon buns, you're going to find this individual, you're going to bring the newspaper, you're going to do a big story of how we thank this person for helping us find the flaw in our system. So I kind of invented a bug bounty program for cinnamon buns. And we figured it out, we patched that hole, and we found a new way of doing that. So I learned a lot by that failure. And I actually did this talk in Sweden. And a guy came up to me after, and he said, you're the cinnamon bun guy. And I said, yes, I'm the cinnamon bun guy. I wrote my master thesis on your failure. Oh, great. Yeah, he was like starstruck because he had written his master thesis on this incident. That is now part of the innovation study curriculum in Sweden. So my colossal failure is now literally the textbook example of what not to do. So that's how you learn. So how can we prevent these things from happening? And I think that having knowledge about how these things happen and how they are executed is beneficial to development teams. And that's why I want all of you to start learning about hacking. And a great way to get into this is something called CTFs. Any of you know the CTF concept? Okay, some of you. Okay, for those of you who don't know, let Elliot from the excellent TV show, Mr. Robot, which actually gets hacking right, define it for you.
The CTF tournament, capture the flag. It's like the Hacker Olympics. Teams around the world compete to solve challenges, reverse engineering, protocol exploitation, forensics. The entire city's suffering an energy crisis while they're here exercising their inner anarchy.
So it's like the Hacker Olympics, and you get to exercise your inner anarchy. And what's more cool than that? So CTFs are structured in the following way. It's basically a gamified way to learn about these techniques by giving you challenges that you have to solve. These challenges, you are searching for little things that are called flags that you can exchange for points, and you can basically compete against others, and you can have prizes and tournaments and stuff like that going. We have done this in DMB a couple of times internally, and it really is an incredible catalyst for learning, and because you kind of start thinking differently when you start to poke at systems and try to figure out if you can make them do something they shouldn't. And solving these challenges, you get the flags, and then you get the points, and that sparks conversations in your organization. We did this one time in DMB for the entire group, not just the IT team. And the water cooler discussions and the coffee machine discussions were all about cybersecurity and SQL injection attacks and cross-site scripting, and they were from accountants and lawyers and stuff like that. And my favorite email that I ever got in DNB Bank of Norway is a lawyer from legal who wrote me a letter of apology because he accidentally deleted my entire SQL server when performing a SQL injection attack. And when your lawyers in legal are doing SQL injection attacks, you're doing something right. And that was pretty cool. And it's just really fun to be the bad guy for once. It's really, really fun. These challenges come in different categories. We have crypto, that's not Bitcoin, but that's encryption, and you're trying to break codes. There's stego, that's where you find secrets inside of other things, like images inside documents or binaries inside images and stuff like that. We have forensics, where you get to do some data mining. You have to find things in some kind of a big bunch of data. It could be network traffic logs, it could be file systems, it could be Git logs and stuff like that. So you get to be like a detective. Then we have reverse engineering. That's when you actually have to disassemble or decompile something or poke at something and figuring out how it works in order to find vulnerabilities. Then we're coming into something called vulnerabilities. That's usually when it's not your code, but other people's code. So you're using a dependency which has a known vulnerability, and you have to exploit that. Then we have web. That's where that's everything that has to do with web exploitation. It can be anything from protocol level exploitations to exploiting servers, runtimes, frameworks, and stuff like that. And then we have the creme de la creme of them all, and that's pawning. That means owning a system, taking it over, and getting full control of that system, which is the ultimate goal of any exercise. To do these things, we have a bunch of tools. I'm not going to go through them, but this is not a non-exhaustive list. This is just a couple of my favorites. There's stuff there for disassembling, there's stuff there for cracking passwords, there's stuff there for doing reverse engineering. You can take a picture of it, I guess. I'm not going to list them up. And this talk, we're going to do some web exploits. And web is kind of cool because it is one of those things that had an intention and has grown into something completely different. And it's quite the different beast today than what this guy envisioned. That's Tim Berners-Lee, and he had the idea of linking documents together for sharing research papers, and that was what it was intended to do. So it was actually just meant to be linked together static content, but that evolved into dynamic content. Can we change things based on other things? And then we moved into interactive content, where we actually interact with each other directly through the internet. And then we let all the non-technical people on the internet, which is probably the worst idea we ever did, because now we have all these content creators creating everything from cat blogs to knitting things. But I guess it's cool. It's cool that it's diverse, and we have what we have today. But what they didn't envision was it growing into the global primary application development platform, because that's what it is. Everything is web apps today. Even your native apps on your computer are many of them are still just web apps. And this produces new vulnerabilities and new challenges that we have to solve. There are many kinds of web exploits. We have cross-site scripting, we have SQL injection, template poisoning, prototype pollution, misconfigurations, broken authentication, phishing, spear phishing, third-party vulnerabilities, and there are so many more to list. There are actually so many vulnerabilities in web applications that we decided to create an organization to kind of keep track on the pulse of web security. That is the OWASP organization. It stands for the Open Web Application Security Project. It was founded back in 2001. And it's all about spreading awareness about information security and application security and tracking what the most different kinds of threats are and figuring a way to disclose and share that information. And they release on occasion a list they call the OWASP Top 10, which is the top 10 most critical things in application security on the web at the moment. So there's also something called the CVE database. Are you familiar with that? Some of you are. CVE stands for Common Vulnerabilities and Exploits, and it's this public repository of known vulnerabilities, POCs of how they are performed. Whenever something is disclosed to the CVE database, it gets an identifier with CVE, the year it was found, and running serial number. And it's used for risk assessment internally in organizations to figure out all the risks when it comes to cybersecurity, so they can make plans and figure out what level of security they need to put in all the places in the organization. But for us CTFers, it's an awesome treasure trove of goodies, because that's where all the nice things are that you use to solve the challenges. There are many CTFs if you want to get started. There are some online ones that are always going on, like Hack the Box or Try Hack Me. These are the services you can subscribe to, and you will get new challenges on occasion. And there's the OWASP Juice Shop, which is this kind of Docker image you can download, run. It's a web application that's a store selling juice. And it's the least secure application ever made, because it implements all of the vulnerabilities on the OWASP list. And you use that to, it's gamified, so you use that to get points, and you can have some fun with it. I really recommend you taking it back to your teams, getting some pizza, getting some beer, getting some wine, and just have an evening of trying to do the juice shop together. It's really fun. In DNB, we have had Hack the Bank, which we have open to the public on occasion. Last time, we did a Christmas calendar with one hack each day people had to perform. It was really fun. And of course, all the big security conferences like DEF CON and Black Hat and so on, they have CTFs, which is really good. But now, enough of me talking. Let's do some demos, shall we? Let's see if I can transition more smoothly than I did when I did my intro. Let's see. Now it's, can you, don't do that. So can you see my screen there? Okay. So I have created this thing. It's called Hacker Portal. It's a mini seat that's not there. Why didn't that happen? I said duplicate, and I did keep changes. Now it works. Great. Maybe I forgot to tap hard enough on keep the changes. Okay, so this is a CTF. It's a mini one. It's up on GitHub, so if you want to have a go at this yourself on your own time, you can download it and just run Docker Compose up, and it will spawn all the containers and this portal. So it's different kinds of things, and they all have this. They have like a title, a description, a score that you will be awarded if you get this right, and there's usually a hint. Sometimes the hint is very good, sometimes it's just nonsense, just to tease you. So let's start with this one. It's Santa's bingo. It says, so Santa decided to give you an early Christmas present. All you have to do is guess a value. That's easy, right? So let's open this page. So here we have this marvelous web page. We can see it's Santa Claus and the Grinch having a lightsaber battle. And it says, make a guess. This is not normal bingo. All you need to have to do is to get one right. So I guess I can just guess something, and it says too bad. But then there is a test thing here that it says ignore. And should we ignore it? Of course not. We should hit it, and that gives us the source code for the index page. Probably some kind of feature left over by some eager developers. And yeah, you can see that this is written in PHP. How many of you are PHP people? A couple, yeah. It's this thing that doesn't want to die, but we still keep it around. It's no, I love PHP. It's really fun because of these things. So let's dig into this code. We have a regular expression match here. So it's you can see it's are you good with regular expression? It basically says match config literally, match dot literally, match PHP literally, and match slash literally. Then be greedy and have as many slashes as you want, or as few as you want, and then it asserts that it's the end of the string. that it ends with that. So if it means that it probably tries to protect us from seeing the config, and that's why that is there, because it says, ha ha ha, you didn't say the magic word. So we can test to see if that works. So if I do this, and I want to see config.php, and I want to do test, and then it says, ha ha ha, didn't say the magic word, and this is not a Unix system. Okay, so that's the first hurdle we have to go through. We have to figure out how to do this. The problem with this expression, and I know you see it.
Make it a bit bigger.
I can try and make it bigger. Yeah, is it easier to see now? Yeah. So anybody see any problems with that regular expression? Okay, let's make it more visual. If I take this regular expression, we can go to regex 101, my go-to site, because regex is the thing I say, this year I'm going to learn it properly. And I never do. And I end up going here because it usually tells it better anyways. So if I do this, I get you can see what I guess. It matches the characters in config, it matches the slash, and it asserts that position at the end of the string with that $. And that means that if I do config.php, it matches. If I do slash, it matches. If I do a bunch of slashes, it matches. But the minute I put something else there, it stopped matching. So that means I can do, if I do index.php slash config.php slash something, and I do the testing, that should pass the first thing. So let's test that out. And now we get an error. It says highlight something because that file doesn't exist. So if we go back, we can see that if test is set, it says highlight file, and then it runs base name on the current address of your URL. And base name, that is let me see if I can find my other screen, is there. I have a link. Base name. It returns the trailing name of a path. So for instance, if you have slash etc slash sudoers.d, it will do sudoers, the last thing of the path. But it has this caution. Base name is locale aware. So for it to see the correct base name with multi-byte characters, the matching locale must be set using the setLocale function. If a path contains characters which are invalid for the current locale, base name is undefined. That is funny. Undefined behavior, that is something we can exploit, right? So let me just take this and I will show you why this is bad. So let me see, is this my terminal? Can you see this? Or should I make it bigger? Yeah? This properly tiled thing doesn't work, so I guess I will do it like this. Let's do PHP base name. So I have here a little test PHP. Let's do batcat on test PHP. So I basically have implemented that regex match, and I just do this path, and I append the numbers 1 to 130 as a char on it, and I just check what base name gets out, basically. That's all. That's not what I wanted. And I have also created a Docker file to be able to just run this in the same environment, on the same version of PHP that this server uses, just to make sure I'm replicating the environment, because it's undefined behavior, meaning that we can't rely on it happening on my system, but it should happen on that system. So if I do, is it like this? Yeah, there we go. So this is how you run a Docker container and just kill it after you quit it by doing this. And now I'm inside that container. I can see I have the test PHP file. If I use PHP to run that, you can see that from everything that's in the ASCII table, it would just return that char. But the minute we are over into characters which are outside of that character set, it starts to return config PHP. That's pretty neat. Meaning all I have to do is add a nonsense character after the slash before test. So let's check that out. So I do this /config PHP, and instead of something, we just do %80 and then do test. And then I'm inside of config PHP, and I can find my flag, man Santa Sherlows PHP. So I can just copy this secret from the config file. I can go back to my portal, and I can set that in and get my points. So that's one way of doing this. Let's see, I'm just check. We still have time for more demos. Let's do another one. Let's do one more PHP just for the heck of it. So we have this thing. It's called the receipt uploader. Let's just write, who doesn't load PHP? Can you think of a way to take over this site? Hint, how does the server know you have an image? Okay, so evidently it has to do with images. So this is the marvelous receipt uploader. Evidently I can upload a picture of a receipt, and it should do something. And I have prepared a receipt. It's this cat. It's a picture of a cat, and I upload that picture. It displays the picture, and I can click it, and it gives me the picture back. So that's uneventful. How can I exploit that? Well, it would be cool if I could just upload a PHP file. That would be cool. I have this called exploit PHP. It's just it does something, it tries to do bad stuff with PHP. So let me try and upload that to see if that works. Exploit PHP. This is just to see if I can, but then it says invalid image file, upload failed, so that didn't work. I couldn't upload a PHP file. So I have to upload an image. But what can we do? Images are binary, right? Well, that's true, but there's also this thing called EXIF data, which is metadata. So if I do this, I can see all the EXIF data in that image. And that EXIF data is plain text inside that image. So I can add one. So if I do, let me just copy paste. No, I'll write it. EXIF tool, and I can just create a new tag called comment. I can set it to be equal to. Let's just do. Oh, wrong keyboard. Let's do Let's do it like this. PHP. Come on. Coding in front of people. Like this. And I do that to cat JPEG. If I now check the EXIF data on that cat, you can see I now have one line of PHP code inside that image. If I upload that thing, how does that work? So I upload the cat again. If I click this now, should something happen? No, it doesn't. And that is because it's still an image. And the way PHP works is that it's usually configured to look at the file extension of the file you're trying to access. And if its extension is PHP, well then PHP tries its best to do something with it. If it's not called PHP, it will ignore it. But we can remedy that, can't we? So let's take this cat .jpeg and make it a hackcat.php. See if that works. So it's the same thing, but now it's called hackcat and it's a PHP file, or it has a PHP extension. It's still recognized as an image, but if I click this thing now, well, PHP is going to do what PHP does best. That is screw everything up for you, because it went inside the image and said, I don't know this. Hey, PHP, I really know this. And then it outputs that thing. So I'm able to execute code remotely on the server through an image, which is kind of cool. And of course, we can build the exploit further. Let me do exploit again. So here I have something. If I take this thing, basically says execute a shell command, list all the files. So if I do exif tool and I do comment, say it's equal to this, I do hackcat php, and I go back, and I upload that again. You can now see I can see the directory on the server. And I can do that and figure out where the flag is. And the flag is one level up, so and that's the last version there. So I just go back, remove this, do insert, a little flood, and do the hackcat. So now I'm just catting out the flag with the cat, or the hackcat. And here we can see the flag images are the worst. And again, I can take that back to my portal and check the answer, and I can get my points. So I was able to take over a server by using an image. Let's see if we have time for one. We have time for one more, because there's 9 minutes left, right? How about we do the serial killer? That's a fun one. This is a peculiar one that I have something to say about. So we have identified all the villains through Santa's blog. Here are the 10 most wanted characters on the North Pole. Hint, there was 5,941 applicants to this list. Okay, let's see. So these are the most wanted people on the North Pole. We can see here we have the Grinch, Rapunzel, and it says that we are logged in as Santa. Okay. Let's use a tool just to figure out what we are working with here. So if I do, there's a tool called, let's do this. There's a tool called WhatWeb, which just checks all the response headers from a web page to give you as much information about the service as it can figure out from those. It's a very nice tool. And I can see I'm working on something that's powered by Express. So I suspect we are in Node territory. And I can fiddle around with this page and try and see what's going on, but the first thing I'm looking for is I'm going to look at some cookies. Because I do have a couple of cookies here. So I have ASP.NET Core something anti-forgery, that's this CSRF token. But this is called package, and let's see what that is. It's a base 64 encoded value. So let's do base 64, let's do decode. Let's just pipe that value to it and see what it is. It looks like JSON, doesn't it? Username Santa, country, North Pole, Elfville. I wonder if I take this, like that, and I just do echo that, come on, type nicely, into poc.json, and I can do VI live, right? And I can just, if I change this Santa to Espen, and we're at NDC country, and we are at Codeville, like that. Come on, VQ. If I now do base 64, I don't want it to word wrap, and I do POC, I get this base 64 encoded value. What do you think happens if I copy this and send that JSON back as a cookie? What happens? That deleted, like this. Let's see what happens. Now I'm logged in as Espen. And if I go to sources, I can see that this thing doesn't have any JavaScript. It doesn't do anything client-side. That means that that inclusion of that property happens server-side, meaning that they are using some server-side rendering technologies. And in Node, there are a couple you can use. And I happen to know of a vulnerability in one called handlebars. And that is that it can, it's susceptible to something called, no, this isn't handlebar. Sorry, I'm raving. This is probably unserialized on the server, and it's probably on the server side. But what are the chances that they're using an insecure deserialization method? And there is one that I know about that is called node serialize. And it's this object here. Let's see if npm is up again. Yeah. It's called node serialize, and it says serialize object including its function into JSON, which somebody thought was a great idea. It's a horrible idea to serialize behavior and deserialize that behavior, especially in JavaScript. Why? Because JavaScript has this thing called an immediately invoked function expression. So if it deserializes that server side, that will just get invoked when it's turned into an object. And this still has 2,393 weekly downloads. If you go to the GitHub repository of that thing, it basically says, security warning, please don't use this because it's insecure. Yet 3,000 people pull this into their project and use it every week, which is kind of strange. So let's see if we can figure out how to do that. If you go into that GitHub, you figure out the syntax of how it serializes that function, and then we can create our exploit. So here I have the same JSON. And if you see it, the pawn property, it has this $ND function. That's a node deserialize function. And that's basically the text representation of a spawn sync of bin bash, piping that bash to my reverse shell on my other machine that I'm going to show you. So this IP address, this runs here in the cloud. This is my reverse shell lab, so I'm just going to set up a listening shell. It listens on the same port. So if I now do that thing again, where I do base 64, and I will do no word wrap, and I will do exploit, I get a slightly longer base 64 encoder value, but this should work. So if I take this, let's do a refresh to make sure I have a new cookie. And I change this. Watch, just, let's see, if I paste that, try and make this more visible, but just watch what happens on this end when I refresh. Now I'm logged in as WCH, and if you didn't see it, let's see if I can make this bigger. Session settings, appearance, let's make it 16. That should work. As you can see, I'm now no longer on Azure user Arne. I'm at node somewhere in /app. This is inside that server because that server went, hey, I want to connect to this guy's shell. So now I can just, I can poke around on that server and find stuff. And I can see that on the root flag txt resides. I can just cat out that. And there you go. Wow, serial killers can be deadly. That's the flag. You can take that out. Go back and do that. And that's correct. And I get my points. So I was able to take over that server by just using a bad design of a NPM package that thousands of people still use every week. Because it's a feature, it's not a bug, I guess. So back to the presentation. Let's see, I have to do this thing just to wrap up. Extend, keep changes. Here we go. Not from current slide. Yes, that went pretty well. So here are some takeaways. That is that CTFs, they are really fun. And learning this in your team and having, you don't have to be a master hacker, but having this mindset, thinking about poking at things, fussing your inputs, seeing what happens when you try to do things you shouldn't. That tends to make us better developers, and it makes us more aware of security. And I want you to go back home, be curious, fuss your inputs, test your apps yourself, try and be a little pen testers. And I want you to put on your hoodies and hack. because it's really fun. And once you start to hack, you never go back. And this evidently will lead to more secure and better solutions. And it's really fun. And if you want to poke around at my little CTF, there's a bunch more tasks that are also really cool. You can find it at that GitHub address. It's open source. You can do whatever you want. And if you want to follow me, this is what I look like from behind. And these are also my 2 social media things I do. I have my LinkedIn and my GitHub, so if you want to hit me up. Thank you. Any questions? Any questions? Then you use the microphone there. Some people, he will help you if you have some. Feel free. Yeah, there's one there.
You mentioned involving people who are not technical in a CTF event.
Yeah.
How would you go about that?
Well, we just said, hey, want to win an Xbox? This is open. Register. Go at it. And we also I had like a boot camp in DMB for a workshop over a day, half a day. We just went through the basics. And I also did a live Twitch stream where I solved some, we had one section of the CTF which we called 101, which is everything basic. And I had a Twitch stream where I went through all of those things, which is basically just teaching you how to solve the different challenges or how you're supposed to approach them. Yeah, anyone else? Yes? I think that's all, the last one we have time for.
Yeah, do you have a link to the boot camp, to the training stuff? Is that part of your sort of socials? Is it in there?
Well, I did imagine myself to be a Twitch hacker streamer, but that died with that one time, so I couldn't keep it up. Sadly, no, it's not available. But you can, if you download this CTF, there's also other ones that are open source that you can download. And I do recommend the Juice Shop. It's really neat and really fun. And it's made by a German guy who's quite a quirky character. He's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of NDC.